I'm Jared the Subway Guy, and this is my story.
With his Subway diet, Jared Fogle became an inspiration to millions of overweight Americans.
Jared Fogle's story was remarkable. Nobody had ever thought about fast food as a way to lose weight.
His personal story became one of the most successful ad campaigns in American history.
This nerdy-looking Jared had suddenly become a superstar.
Hey everybody, my name is Jared Fogle.
But Fogle's wholesome exterior wasn't all that it was cracked up to be.
He was recorded making inappropriate remarks about having sex with underage girls.
Behind closed doors, he led the secret life of a relentless sexual predator.
Do a little touchy-feely things with me now, make it feel good.
He's a monster.
Investigators left with trunks full of evidence, removing electronics from Fogle's home. Police dogs helping with the search.
Amassing charges of child pornography and pedophilia, Jared Fogle went from famous to notorious. In April of 2015, acting on an anonymous tip, Wayne Township police converged on the home of a man named Russell Taylor. Inside Taylor's home, investigators found hidden cameras placed in the bathrooms and bedrooms, all for the purposes of filming children in the nude, some of whom were Taylor's own relatives.
Police turned up a mountain of evidence, including over 400 videos and photos. Several of these videos were found to be produced by Taylor through hidden cameras in his stepdaughter's room.
By the next morning, the 43-year-old husband and father of two was charged with possession of child pornography, child exploitation, and voyeurism.
These allegations were shocking, but what was even more surprising is that Taylor was the executive director of a charity for children suffering from obesity. And this was known as the Jared Foundation and was in fact established by Jared Fogle.
Press outlets quickly linked Taylor to the Jared Foundation and its founder, Jared Fogle, known to most Americans as the Subway Guy.
For anyone who had just found out an awful secret about a close friend, this would be hard to stomach. Jared had an even bigger problem to deal with as he was so publicly aligned with Taylor.
In fact, recent posts on Taylor's Facebook page from just 1 week prior showed photos of Fogle and Taylor together smiling for cameras. Subway quickly moved to distance itself from the Jared Foundation.
Jared is not implicated here, but Taylor is partners with Jared, and Taylor is running the Jared Foundation. Subway very carefully makes sure that it communicates that Jared may be their spokesman, but we've got nothing to do with their the foundation or this guy that runs it.
While Jared and Subway focused on saving their public image, a team of federal investigators were piecing together the details of Russell Taylor's crimes.
When law enforcement becomes aware of any kind of sexual exploitation of children, they get to work. They'll do everything they can to investigate and find out exactly what happened and try to find who was responsible for abusing these children.
While searching through Taylor's computer, investigators uncovered hundreds of pornographic videos, computer records, and text messages. Not only was he collecting child pornography, he was distributing it to others. Agents began building a case against Taylor and the individuals on his distribution list. Less than 2 months after Taylor's arrest, the case made headlines again when the FBI raided an address found on Taylor's list. The nation was shocked to learn the home belonged to Subway spokesman Jared Fogle.
Breaking news, federal and state authorities have raided the Indiana home of the Subway restaurant spokesperson Jared Fogle.
All of his computers and any other electronic equipment were removed. His family and neighbors were in shock watching Subway's golden boy as he was investigated for the same crimes he had just recently denounced.
I'm shocked and upset, of course, and saddened. A great figure in our community.
Suddenly, Jared found himself at the center of his own child pornography investigation.
Jared was devastated when he got caught. He thought that he would get away with this.
Even though he was not immediately arrested, federal agents continued to unearth evidence from his home.
After today's raid, the fast food chain putting out a statement later today saying Subway and Jared Fogle have mutually agreed to suspend their relationship due to the current investigation.
Subway quickly pulled Jared's ads and removed all mention of him from company websites.
The company was scrambling to come up with an alternative marketing plan at this point, but after a decade of working with Jared, they really were in trouble.
For Fogle, it marked an end of an improbable, meteoric rise to stardom. The end of an incredible journey that began when Jared developed poor eating habits during childhood. Jared Fogle was born in Indianapolis, Indiana in 1977. He was raised in a close-knit Jewish family, the son of a doctor and a teacher. At first, his parents were delighted by their son's healthy appetite. But that appetite soon changed into an unhealthy relationship with food. As early as 3rd grade, Jared started binge eating. While playing video games, he'd eat an entire carton of ice cream. Instead of a slice of pizza, he'd polish off the box in one sitting. The more his mother and physician father harped on his diet, the more food young Jared would secretly eat.
As a child, Fogle was overweight. He didn't exercise much at all. He overate all of his meals. He was basically lethargic. He spent most of his time indoors, and he really didn't have much to do with other people.
At 16, Jared was an outsider without many friends. But with a newly acquired driver's license, he was just a drive-through away from fast food.
As a teen, his average lunch included a double-sized burger, super-sized fries, followed by apple pie, and he washed that down with an ocean of soda. It was a lot of calories to consume in a single meal.
More than 100 pounds over his ideal weight, Fogle was clinically morbidly obese.
There's a lot of different health problems that are related to obesity. Some of the most common are type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, gastrointestinal issues, sleep apnea.
Jared's overeating was more than a bad habit. It was threatening his life. In 1995, at age 18, Jared was accepted to Indiana University. But his weight continued to keep him isolated. Fearing ridicule, he avoided social events, spending much of his time alone in his room, eating junk food.
There's no question that a young Jared Fogle had an obesity problem. There's no doubt he didn't like the way he looked. And he certainly perceived others didn't like the way he looked.
Jared had trouble getting through doorways, electing to choose courses by testing whether he could fit into the classroom's seats. By 1998, Jared's body was bulking under its own weight. At 425 pounds, he was suffering from edema, with fluid building up in his ankles and wrists. He was afflicted with sleep apnea, constantly awakened as fat around his windpipe cut off his air supply. His blood pressure was steadily rising. Jared recorded himself sleeping, and after listening to a tape of himself snoring, Jared realized he was really sick. With his health in serious jeopardy, Fogle researched better dietary options. Jared noticed a sign in his local Subway shop touting 7 sandwiches with less than 6 grams of fat apiece. He decided to try eating a diet of a 6-inch turkey sub for lunch and a full-length veggie sub for dinner, both meals with a bag of baked chips and a diet soda.
Jared's weight loss methodology would later be coined the Subway diet.
Jared also started walking to class. The combination of a better diet and light exercise had Fogle headed in the right path, physically.
Dinner would be pretty much the same, except instead of a 6-inch Subway sandwich, he would have a 12-inch, paired with the same sides of pretzels, baked potato chips, and another Diet Coke.
Almost 200 Subway sandwiches later, Jared stepped on the scale and weighed in at 340 pounds. He dropped a whopping 94 pounds in just 3 months. Surprisingly, Jared had made a diet of fast food successful.
It seemed like there was a diet for every fad possible. No carbs, high carbs. No protein, high protein. This was the first time that anybody had thought about using a convenient or fast food outlet as a way to lose weight.
Not only was Jared losing weight, he was gaining a social life. While Jared was in the middle of his weight loss journey at Indiana University, his father introduced him to Elizabeth Christie, a pediatric nurse. The two immediately hit it off. In the meantime, the pounds kept coming off, and in 11 months, Jared had dropped 245 pounds, down to a weight of 190.
By decreasing his caloric intake from 10,000 calories a day to about 1,000 calories a day, Jared was able to lose over 200 pounds in less than a year.
Jared's success story could have ended there in anonymity. But a friend who'd lived in Fogle's dorm wrote a piece about him that landed on the front page of the student newspaper in April 1999. Men's Health magazine picked up the story and ran an article in November of 1999 titled, "Stupid Diets That Work." Word quickly traveled back to Subway's PR team.
Subway was trying to reinvent itself as kind of the healthy fast food option. Jared gave a visual of how eating Subway could help someone transform their life from overweight and unhealthy to one that was very healthy and active.
In 2000, Subway began casting Jared in a series of national television ads showing how a regular guy from Indiana lost over 200 pounds eating Subway sandwiches every day. His unbelievable weight loss quickly became a national inspiration story.
I don't think Jared Fogle at all thought that he would be making national headlines or that he would be a spokesperson for a major food chain. And yet, one little story in the school newspaper gets picked up, and suddenly it's a sensation, and the whole world wants to know about it.
Almost overnight, Jared Fogle was transformed from an anonymous dieting college student to a national spokesman for a major restaurant chain. Unknown at the time was that the sudden fame he found would also unleash his inner demons, and in the process make him notorious. Jared Fogle went from an overweight loner to millionaire corporate pitchman after losing hundreds of pounds on a diet of Subway sandwiches. Jared's inspirational story would become the subject of numerous newspaper and magazine articles. The unassuming Fogle would be parodied on late-night TV, and even would make a cameo in the TV movie Sharknado 2. But back in 2000, Fogle was just getting his first taste of Subway stardom. Shortly after graduating from Indiana University, Jared began appearing in Subway commercials and traveling 200 days a year as an official Subway spokesman.
Everybody needs to make sure they make really, really good healthy decisions every day.
Their publicity campaign featured the now leaner Jared alongside a pair of 60-inch waist jeans from his college days. The photo became an iconic image.
Everyone in America could identify Jared during the campaign, and not only could they identify Jared, but they could identify his pair of pants from when he was that over 400-pound man who couldn't leave his dorm room.
Jared suddenly becomes one of the most recognizable faces in American advertising at the time. And Subway pulls the incredible rabbit out of the hat sleight of hand to be able to advertise a fast food place as though it's some mecca of health.
Subway's popularity skyrocketed. And without question, the secret behind the company's success was their 24-year-old, unusually shy and unassuming spokesperson.
Jared Fogle was really the face of Subway, the way Ronald McDonald had been the face of McDonald's and Dave Thomas the face of Wendy's. This wouldn't have worked with just anyone. A lot of things came together. For one thing, he did lose a whole lot of weight, but he also had a certain way about him. He was telegenic for all the fact that he didn't look anything like a leading man, and I think that really kind of appealed to a lot of people.
It's extraordinarily rare for an organic story like Jared's to become the centerpiece of an advertising campaign. It's made all the more remarkable by the fact that Jared was just an ordinary guy who didn't really seek publicity for his feat at first.
In 2001, Fogle tied the knot with his girlfriend, Elizabeth Christie. The next year, the Wall Street Journal reported that there were more Subway locations operating in the U.S. than McDonald's.
It was a real turning point, a change, not just for Subway's history, but also for other fast food organizations that were looking for ways to set themselves apart.
In the meantime, Jared's fame continued to grow.
Hey, you know, Piggy, that Jared fellow eats here a lot. Oh, he's so dreamy.
Fogle appeared on The Oprah Winfrey Show, and in 2001, late-night host Jimmy Fallon played Fogle in a sketch on Saturday Night Live. The next year, South Park made Fogle the centerpiece of an episode.
Still looking good. His name is Jared. His name is Jared, and he likes to eat the sandwiches.
And Jared, who was once too overweight to fit through doorways, carried the Olympic torch through Indiana in 2002. In public appearances, fans lined up for a chance to meet Jared, the Subway guy.
From college newspaper to Men's Health article to Subway was a pretty quick progression. This is the kind of stuff that dreams are made on. This kind of nerdy-looking Jared Fogle
My name is Jared Fogle.
had suddenly become a superstar.
I was thrilled to be invited for the premiere again, and what a cool part of my job to get to come and be part of this.
Well, Jared, who had once been bullied and rarely left his room, was now a total celebrity. This was a major confidence booster for him. Never before had he felt important in his life, and now he had thousands of people across the country looking up to him.
Fogle had transformed not only his body, but his life. He enjoyed the perks of being a superstar, pulling in millions, carrying a black card that allowed him to eat at Subway for free, and traveling first class. Although Jared enjoyed being a multimillionaire celebrity, he still wanted to maintain his humble, good guy image. He decided to create an organization that would do just that.
Somebody told him, you're making all this money, millions of dollars, start a foundation to help people like everybody else does. It's good for your image to show you want to give back.
In 2004, at age 27, Fogle established the Jared Foundation, a nonprofit organization focused on raising awareness about childhood obesity.
And he wanted to inspire others to get a head start on healthy eating and exercising before they would become obese and before it would become a problem to them.
While serving as Subway spokesperson, Jared also began paying visits to primary and secondary schools, giving presentations on health, nutrition, and exercise. The charity promised to give $2 million to schools and educational programs focused on health by collecting donations, grants, and gifts.
Just about everybody who starts a foundation sees a double advantage. The first, of course, is that you're doing good, you're giving something back. The other is that you're enhancing and burnishing your brand. And I think that was clear that that was the intention of Jared and also the people who were advising him.
In the fall of that year, Fogle met Russell Taylor at an elementary school after giving a speech. Taylor was a youth program manager for the American Heart Association. The two men quickly discovered they had a lot in common. Both men shared a shy demeanor and grew up with few friends. And, like Jared, Russell Taylor was interested in helping young people. Jared brought him into his celebrity fold, taking him to celebrity photo shoots, red carpet movie premieres, and sitting courtside for playoff games.
Taylor was astonished that someone so rich and famous as Fogle would want to be associated with him. He had been tired of being so lonely, and Jared's attention made him feel special.
At that moment in time, Jared Fogle seemed to be the perfect star-spangled American success story. His character appeared impeccable. But Fogle's relationship with Taylor soon took an unexpected dark turn. The two men discovered their mutual interests included hard drinking, strippers, and underage girls. With Fogle footing the bill, the two men began traveling to Thailand, where they would party all night and engage in sex with teen prostitutes.
The question is, what's wrong with Fogle? Is he addicted to sex? Is it a sex addiction or something else? No. This case is one of hebephilia. He wanted adolescent girls, basically. He didn't want young women, he wanted adolescent girls.
As his comfort with Taylor grew, Fogle was becoming emboldened about expressing his true sexual desires. And to satisfy his appetite, he was willing to take more drastic steps. They were steps that would eventually make him notorious. A morbidly obese loner, Jared Fogle shot to fame after losing hundreds of pounds on a diet of Subway sandwiches. But as his celebrity grew, Fogle began to increasingly use his wealth and fame to satiate his most base desires. As Fogle's sexual behavior became increasingly deviant, his relationship with his wife deteriorated. In 2007, Jared and Elizabeth Fogle divorced. 2 years later, Fogle hired Russell Taylor to run his personal charity, the Jared Foundation.
So Jared has a partner. He runs the Jared Foundation, which turns out to be a foundation that really never did much. It wasn't very competently run.
A USA Today investigation would later reveal that the foundation was a sham. According to the paper, from 2009 to 2013, the foundation didn't issue a single grant. The paper also reported that the foundation spent just $73,000 a year on average. 60% of the money went to the executive director's salary, and 26% was unaccounted for. In the meantime, the newly single Fogle befriended newspaper reporter Rochelle Herman Walrond. But in an epic lapse of judgment, Fogle soon began telling the journalist about his illicit desires.
Herman Walrond told police in Sarasota, Florida, that Jared had made salacious comments to her about middle school-age girls at a health event she was covering for a local news station. The police directed her to the FBI, who asked her to wear a wire during her conversations with Jared. Over the next 4 years, he was recorded making inappropriate remarks about having sex with underage girls.
The content of those conversations offered a damning glimpse into Fogle's private life. In one conversation, Jared laid out a plan for luring children into sexual encounters.
So just sharing stories, and then, we get a little closer and a little closer and a little closer, and before you know it, it just starts to happen.
At one point, Herman Walrond asked Jared if he ever considered the feelings and personalities of the children.
Is there any kind of personality to look for?
I think it's just going to depend on the situation. I don't know. We'll see.
But Jared's sense of impropriety had all but vanished. He even asked Herman Walrond to help arrange for him to have sex with children, including her own relatives.
Jared went so far as to request that Herman place a hidden camera in her daughter's room so that he could get a look at her friends.
What if we put a camera in your kid's room? Would it be okay with that?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather have it in your son or your daughter's room?
In exposing his darkest criminal desires to Rochelle, Jared revealed a man who was so caught up in his own warped sense of reality that he had little fear of being caught.
Jared, who was empowered by his celebrity status, felt more confident approaching strangers for inappropriate content. He hoped that people would be so flattered to be in his presence that he could say what he wanted, and they would honor the fact that he opened up to them in strict confidence.
And that's what I think is wonderful with you, is that you're able to get in early. You could totally win him over, which is what I love.
Rochelle Herman Walrond recorded Jared for 4.5 years. In his text and phone conversations, Fogle expressed predatory desires. But in the eyes of the law, having these fantasies is not a crime. There simply wasn't enough solid evidence for authorities to move forward.
You can write about it, you can talk about it, but as long as there's no proof of you doing it, it's very difficult to get an arrest warrant for someone.
In 2008, Fogle took his interest in illicit sex to the next level when Russell Taylor told him he accidentally recorded underage teens having sex on a nanny cam inside his home. Taylor alleged Fogle demanded to see the footage and then pushed him to place cameras in his children's bedrooms and bathrooms, hoping to catch their young friends during sleepovers in the nude. Taylor willingly complied.
Further investigation into Jared and Taylor's relationship showed that Jared was the mastermind behind the operation. Explicit content would be gathered by Taylor and given to Jared so that the spokesman never had to directly get his hands dirty.
With no punishment for his actions, Fogle saw no risk in sharing his wild fantasies with even more people. In 2008, Cindy Mills, a Subway franchise owner, said she had grown uncomfortable after a series of texts from Fogle and decided to hire a lawyer to have the messages extracted from her phone.
In these texts, Jared requested that she arrange for him to have sex with her 16-year-old cousin.
Mills also claimed that she'd shared the messages with Subway management and warned that, quote, he should not be interacting with young people.
People like Jared don't become monsters overnight. Jared had a long history of being tied to sexual content. Unfortunately, the people she reported Jared's request to didn't take serious action, or any action at all.
Jared's sexual behavior was veering further and further over the line, but he was still somehow managing to avoid getting into trouble.
Jared may have avoided acting on his urges for most of his young adult life. When he became famous and lost all the weight, what probably happened was that he gave himself permission to uncontain himself from the sexual desires that had been long-term and long-standing for him.
Due to Jared's status with Subway, he felt like he could do whatever he wanted. He came and went freely from locations and had casual relationships with workers. When relationships with workers escalated to being more intimate, he felt comfortable enough to ask them to do his bidding. He was a big shot in the company, and what he was doing with his co-workers, he felt no one's gonna challenge him, because if they did, he'd come after them and they'd lose their job.
Despite multiple troublesome reports to authorities, Jared was still riding high. In 2008, Fogle embarked on a 10-city Subway-sponsored campaign called Tour de Pants, which celebrated his decade of diet success. In 2010, Fogle married a woman his brother had introduced him to, teacher Katie McLaughlin. In 2011, the couple had their first child, a baby boy named Brady. But marriage and fatherhood did little to quell Fogle's appetite for illicit sex. In 2012, 2 years into his marriage, Fogle began trolling the internet and hooking up with underage girls while away from home on business trips.
You know, when people struggle with sex addiction, they put sex as their primary relationship above all else. So they take a lot of risks, whether it's sexting or engaging in high-risk sex behaviors or risking public humiliation. They put that, at the forefront of their world.
Fogle was consumed by a vile sexual fever that was causing him to take bigger and bigger chances. For Jared, there was no antidote. He was headed for an epic fall that would make him notorious. For more than a decade, Jared Fogle had been living a double life. Publicly, he was the wholesome, down-to-earth pitchman for the Subway fast food chain. But privately, he was a man with an appetite for child pornography and underage girls. Despite telling his dark desires to virtual strangers, Fogle operated with impunity. He starred in hundreds of Subway commercials and lived the life of a celebrity. But unknown to Fogle, his inappropriate fantasies had been reported to authorities. Police were monitoring his activities and waiting for the Subway pitchman to slip up. But in 2013, trouble seemed miles away. Subway was opening 50 new locations a week, and executives credited Jared with 1/3 of the company's growth. Jared had starred in over 300 commercials for Subway.
I've spent the last 17 years talking about how Subway's changed my life and what it can do for others. I want to be doing this for the next 17 years.
He also parlayed his success into television roles.
He has been featured on an episode of Sharknado. He's been on WWE Raw. This guy not only became famous for Subway commercials, he became a celebrity on all these other shows.
Jared's wholesome, everyman image was so synonymous with Subway, the company even began incorporating his wife into its ads.
We saw him when he had been a college kid losing all this weight, and now he'd managed to get married. I mean, there was a kind of a success story to this whole thing.
For more than a decade, Jared reigned supreme as the Subway guy. Financial analysts speculated his net worth amounted to $15 million. But in 2014, Jared's luck began to change.
The Jared fad had already begun to dim, and Subway had begun to use him less and less, and they had gone, of course, into the new direction of the $5 footlong.
With the $5 footlong campaign, Subway was promoting a bang-for-your-buck deal. But the company didn't want to entirely abandon the healthy image it had developed over the years. With Fogle, the company saw a way to make a smooth transition.
Subway had spent years and invested a lot of money promoting itself as a healthy alternative to fast food. They didn't want to undo that, so instead they brought in Jared to help promote this image.
How's that for a pitch?
Even great low-fat options.
Jared had been downsized, but he was still raking in the dough from commercials and lucrative appearance fees. Fogle was living a double life, but seemed above the law. Then, in 2014, a bombshell. A tipster called police about a man who was trafficking in child pornography. His name was Russell Taylor.
Taylor first came to the police's attention when an anonymous woman reported him to the police for offering to distribute explicit photos and videos of young children.
The woman also told police that Taylor had suggested acts of bestiality and sadism. The tip sparked a multi-unit investigation.
Accusations of pedophilia are taken very seriously, so the police dutifully investigated Taylor.
Federal and state authorities raided Taylor's home and discovered hundreds of videos and computer files containing child pornography. They also found an electronic trail of breadcrumbs that led directly to Jared Fogle's doorstep.
Investigators descend before dawn on the Indiana home of longtime Subway spokesman Jared Fogle.
Police had been investigating Fogle on separate child pornography charges for years. But it still wasn't the smoking gun they needed.
The police and the FBI had evidence of him talking about these things, saying the worst things that one could say about young children, but they didn't have the evidence they needed to actually make an arrest.
But now, authorities had evidence from Russell Taylor's home and the material found at Fogle's own home, including an abundance of electronic records.
With the computer and phone records that were collected by investigators, they could see that when Fogle traveled, he would troll online for erotic services and escorts.
During a trip to New York City, Fogle crossed the line from fantasy to criminal misconduct.
Detectives found evidence that in November 2012, while in New York staying at the Plaza Hotel, Fogle paid for sex with a 17-year-old prostitute.
While searching Jared's electronic records, police also discovered a text chat with a 17-year-old escort. He offered a $400 fee if she could find him someone aged 16 or younger to have sex with.
This was the final nail in the coffin.
On August 18, 2015, Subway received a tip that Fogle was about to be arrested. The company officially ended its relationship with Jared that same day.
That was the last we ever saw of Jared in a Subway ad at that point. And Subway very quickly and unequivocally take Jared off all of their material and their website and their advertising and erase the memory of Jared from the entire company.
On August 19, 2015, Fogle was arrested by FBI agents and charged with paying to engage in sexually explicit acts with children and receiving and distributing child pornography.
Today, Jared Fogle has been charged and has admitted to participating in a 5-year criminal scheme to exploit children.
Katie Fogle immediately filed for divorce. She said Jared had led a double life. The man she saw at home was a husband and father.
When the FBI banged on my door on July 7th, 2015, I thought it was the worst day of my life. Like the rest of America, I was shocked to learn what I learned in the weeks and months to follow. First, let me say to the victims of my ex-husband, you're never far from my thoughts and prayers. I can only imagine what you were going through. Finding out that your husband and the father of your children is a child predator, and knowing that his job involves him visiting schools on a regular basis is devastating.
Many people look at this and say, Katie had to know something. That's not true. Many sex offenders live a double life. On one hand, they are husbands and wives and parents, and sometimes very good husbands and parents. But yet there's another part of their life that they keep secret from everybody else.
He had 2 lives going on. You know, he was home with the kids and I in one life, and he was out on the road in a different life. And he was able to keep those 2 very separate in a way that I couldn't even fathom.
Meanwhile, with evidence of his guilt overwhelming, Fogle agreed to accept a plea deal. In accordance with the deal, prosecutors agreed to seek a sentence of no more than 12.5 years. In return, Fogle agreed to not ask for less than a minimum sentence of 5 years.
Federal prosecutors announced that Jared would plead guilty to 2 counts, one of distribution and receipt of child pornography, and one to traveling to engage in illicit sexual conduct with a minor.
Let's call this what it is. This is about using wealth, status, and secrecy to illegally exploit children.
Fogle was subsequently released on bail, but agreed to return to court at a later date to formally plead guilty. Dealt a losing hand, Jared's lawyers seemed to have negotiated the best deal possible. With good behavior, Jared could possibly be a free man in less than 5 years. But there was a catch. The sentencing judge was not bound to the terms of the plea deal. Jared was rolling the dice that he would get a judge who wouldn't throw the book at him. But if he guessed wrong, the notorious Jared Fogle could wind up behind bars for a very long time. In August 2015, the decade-long saga of Jared Fogle, the subway guy, seemed to be coming to an end. Fogle was summoned to U.S. District Court in Indianapolis, where he agreed to plead guilty to the charges of distribution and receipt of child pornography, and crossing state lines to engage in illicit sexual conduct with a minor.
Needless to say, this was a big story. Jared Fogle had been around for 15 years. He was kind of this legendary Subway diet. We'd seen him on all these commercials.
For Subway, it was a double whammy. Not only was the face of the franchise going to prison, but numerous people stepped forward and said the company knew about Fogle's illicit behavior for years.
Now, as other stories came out that people weren't responding to complaints were made, Subway may have had more culpability in not getting this exposed sooner than they did.
With Jared Fogle as its pitchman, Subway sales had soared. Now, scandal was affecting the company's bottom line.
Subway sales took a sharp decline after the Jared Fogle scandal. People blamed them for enabling Jared to have the kind of unrestricted access that predators would benefit from.
When there is scandal, consumers turn just as quickly and walk away and ridicule the person that they were championing just months before. Even though Jared's scandal had nothing to do with the menu or the nutritional value of Subway, the sales were cut in half.
At the sentencing hearing, Jared tearfully read a statement in which he apologized for the damage he'd done to as many as 12 victims and their families. He vowed to be a better person when he got out of prison.
To his dismay, the public was unsympathetic. If there was one thing people could unite over, it was hating someone who preyed on children. He said he's sorry, but the person he's most sorry for right now is Jared Fogle.
As part of his plea deal, Jared agreed to pay $1 million in restitution, which added up to about $100,000 for each of the 10 victims. But despite the public apology and cash settlement, Fogle didn't fully own up to his crimes. At the sentencing hearing, Jared's lawyer had an expert witness make an outrageous argument.
A forensic psychiatrist testified that once Jared lost the weight, he had sort of a hypersexuality causing him to have this sexual deviant behavior, almost implying that Jared didn't know how to use this extra energy he had.
This all got really creepy and weird. At one point, he made the argument that the parents themselves were responsible for pushing their underage child into the kinds of activities that Jared had with them. I mean, these just really weird sorts of arguments.
Fogle's attorney argued he traded his addiction to food for an addiction to sex and pornography.
And this was evil, but incredibly clever, because it essentially said, the Subway diet will help you lose 245 pounds, but it'll also turn you into a pedophile. I mean, that's essentially what the argument made.
When Jared tried to make Subway's diet responsible for his actions, it fell flat immediately. It was obviously the attempt of a desperate man to put the blame where it didn't belong. Nobody bought it. The media, the family that was involved in litigation, the Subway executives, nobody at all bought it.
That included the judge. At the sentencing hearing, in accordance with the plea deal, prosecutors asked for a 12.5-year sentence. But the judge threw the book at Fogle, sentencing him to more than 15 years in prison. And that wasn't all.
Jared, of course, had to worry not only about the criminal trial, but he had to worry about civil issues with the families of the people that he had engaged in these activities with.
It wasn't an unexpected event. Not only were the victims going through severe emotional distress and trauma, their parents also had to go through the pain of watching their children suffer. Like any good parents would, one pair filed a lawsuit seeking further justice for what Fogle had done.
6 months later, the parents of a child captured in a nude on video filed a civil lawsuit against Jared, seeking $300,000 in damages. It amounted to triple the sum Jared agreed to in his original plea deal. Despite his previous claims of contrition, Jared Fogle displayed a shocking change of attitude when responding to the lawsuit. Even from prison, he fought back at his victims in court.
Rather than accepting further consequences for his crimes, Fogle fired back with his own lawsuit.
In his countersuit, Fogle claimed the parents' abusive marriage drove their daughter to engage in the destructive behavior that led to the sexual abuse.
For Fogle to blame victims is quite frankly ridiculous. Most victims already blame themselves for what happened, and their lives have been changed and devastated in many respects.
People that victim blame deflect the blame onto anyone but themselves, and that causes further damage to those that they've already hurt.
This is more of an indication of Jared Fogle's true self, who he really is, and not the person who told everybody how sorry he was for the life that he led.
The civil suit against him was dropped after he and his victim reached an out-of-court settlement. Although Jared vowed to change and become a better man, some experts doubted his sincerity.
The one thing that all sexual violators of young children have in common is they want to keep sexually violating young children. They can be put in prison, they can receive psychological counseling, but in the long run, it's a very difficult, if not impossible, addiction to cure. His addiction, no doubt, is still with him. Let's just hope it never manifests itself again.
Jared Fogle is currently serving out his 15-year prison sentence in Littleton, Colorado. Once a high-profile celebrity, recognized for one of the most successful weight loss campaigns in American history, Jared Fogle was exposed as a fraud and cold-hearted sexual predator. And for that, he will always be notorious.